this documentary was to create a conversation and raise awareness on these issues and to shed light on something that our community needs to be talking about a lot more.
As the U.S. Attorney, I'm the top federal law enforcement official in the state. And what I've been seeing and hearing is absolutely terrifying.
We're dealing with drugs right now where you don't get mistakes. And like you said, you don't get do-overs. So it's very crucial that we teach kids decision-making skills before they get to that point.
These drugs, they are dangerous, they are addictive, and the fentanyl, which you're referring to, is just one derivative of a drug that is used in my emergency department for people, for anesthesia, for severe pain, for cancer-associated pain.
This is a very strong community for alcohol use.
Somebody brought up how marijuana was a gateway drug, you know, and they were like, I think we saw examples of that like 3 times in the film, but I feel like the biggest gateway drug is alcohol, and I feel like we saw that every time in the film. What people were talking about, what they first started with, was drinking.
You know, even when we're talking about alcohol, what really scares me is when I hear parents, especially after something like fentanyl comes out, say, well, boy, I'm sure glad my kids just drink.
I mean, I don't know about the parties you went to in high school, but the parties I went to, I mean, loads of parents were just like, yeah, here's alcohol for you. And it was just okay, you know? So it never felt like you were abusing a substance, and your parents condoned it, so obviously it was an okay thing.
And we're having kids out there that are making life decisions under the influence, and I think that definitely leads to poor decisions.
You know, having a few drinks with friends, and then your inhibitions are down, and so when somebody offers you something else, it'd be a lot easier to take, you know? And so then you're not prepared for it, you're not sure what you're actually taking or about to do.
When you listen to Bradbury talk about our hockey team, right, and he talks about why did they win, and he says, what do we have in Grand Forks, North Dakota in our hockey program? We have a culture of winning.
Absolutely glorifies alcohol. Like, that's your analogy? Because that's really what it is. I mean, you go to those hockey games and it's just a bunch of people binge drinking. I mean, your parents' friends, whoever, like completely drunk out of their mind, and and that's what you grow up with, so that's what you know.
And what we need in our communities is a culture change where we don't have a permissive culture for drug use. And that's what we have.
I mean, there's a lot of weird things that we have embedded into this culture. I think he was trying to make a good point of like, look at this, like this way that we bring a community together through sports or whatever. In actuality, it's just a way that we bring people together, yeah, to use the substance.
I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on marijuana and having it be a gateway drug, kind of like a starter.
I think we saw about 3 examples of it in the video tonight.
I think a lot of people that are real interested in legalizing marijuana are people that are using marijuana, and I think when you're using marijuana, I think you're biased.
Did he say that?
So basically your opinion doesn't count.
Well, if you don't use drugs, then you're biased too. I mean, obvious.
They can't stand up there and say that marijuana smokers are biased, because if you don't smoke marijuana, then you're biased.
You can't say those kinds of things, and then everyone clapped after that.
Mm-hmm. And so I have
What's the point then? That is such a horrible, horrible mindset to have, that people who use drugs shouldn't be part of the conversation, when the whole conversation was about those people. So it's really interesting that we wouldn't have had somebody that has had those real experiences be a part of a conversation that's talking about them. I mean, we're not going to create any change if we're not including the people that it's affecting the most.
I'm gonna say push like for another event, and honestly, more young people need to go.
Right.
Like, there need to be more young faces in the crowd. They don't need to say anything, but like, they need to be there.
Yeah, I definitely think there should have been more young people on the panel, or at least people who have dealt with addiction, or at least a drug addiction counselor or something.
Is what can you do? And the answer to that question is engage. Whatever your role is in this community, make a difference on this issue. If you believe in something strongly, advocate for it.
Working with a group of friends to get an organization on campus, one of the things that we found is a kit that you can essentially test drugs for its potency. It was mentioned a couple times in the video that these overdoses happen when people don't know what they're taking. That decision's already made by that person, that they're going to take that drug. And by providing a kit, they'd be able to know what they're taking and prevent overdoses. And I was just curious if you guys had any comments about the merit of that.
I would say timeout, no way. You're not going to be able to create a kit that's going to be able to determine the potency of the chemicals that are coming out of China that are changing on a regular basis. It's not going to happen.
Your friend asked them what they thought about these kits. I wasn't expecting Chris Myers to shut him down completely like that. And that was really disheartening because I feel like the whole reason why we did the community forum was to open this discussion up and to talk about these things.
Obviously, abstinence would be ideal. And until we get that figured out, you know, you're coming from an uneducated aspect. You've never heard of this drug testing kit. So, I mean, it's just interesting to say that you wouldn't even consider.
I know as soon as what I said tonight was wrong, the way that it was delivered and communicated, but we still sat here and had a moment where we realized we aren't right. We don't know everything. And then you look at the other side, those people that were laughing are just continuing on and don't realize that maybe their mindset isn't right.
I think he was taken aback because this was supposed to be a community discussion. This was supposed to be open for people to feel like a safe space. It was supposed to be that. Yeah, his tone was a little bit whatever, but so was Chris Myers. I mean, his tone wasn't any better at all.
And I appreciate what you're coming from, what you're saying is safety, and we, you know, I want you all to remember, it's not us against that. We're in it together. We're on your side.
I feel like Dr. Bo did the best job at reining in the conversation, trying to include everybody instead of making it feel like it was an us versus them thing.
You know, this is complicated chemistry science, and as you know, in fact, even some of our drug tests in the emergency department will test some drugs positive, and other ones that we just gave. I just gave a drug, and I send a drug test, and it doesn't show up.
So it can test for mescaline. We got 2CB, 2CI, 2CC, opium, codeine, morphine, heroin.
Now, you may be talking about a specific thing for heroin, for example, but it may not test fentanyl, which has a acyl group that's onto the, you know, whatever carboxylic chain, and these guys are right. I hate to say it, they are right that you are not going to be able to monitor every new drug that comes out with a test kit that allows you to understand potency because
the dosages are different. So you went from something that was, you know, a powder that was in a capsule this big to things that can't be measured on the tip of your finger. So when they know what they have, they can actually approach it towards the dosages, the setting, and you take even a milligram, you're heading towards an overdose rate.
Dr. Bo had a lot of really great things to say. I mean, obviously he really cares about addicts and people who use drugs. You can tell. I mean, you could really tell.
We are with you. We're here for you. In fact, our whole community is here for you. So let's remember that.
We shouldn't completely throw them to the wayside without seriously talking about them first.
And you know, your ideas are good ones to be brought up for conversation. Completely agree with that.
I mean that there's a flaw in our communication between maybe older generation and the younger generation. You know, obviously there's a disconnect. We need to close that gap.
The decision-making of kids that has not ever changed, right? All kids make bad decisions. If you're a parent, engage. Monitor what they're doing.
I think that the older generation needs to start trusting us a little bit more because we are trying to help.
That the communication probably isn't as close as it used to be. Everybody's so busy nowadays that you don't find out about their lives as much, and by the time they get concerned, it might be too late. So I think it's time to re-communicate with your kids at a young age.
And if we don't have older people listening to what we have to say, it's not going to do anyone any good.
The messaging that we're giving our young people.
Obviously, just say no isn't working.
People that were leaving there only got abstinence as the only solution, which is contagious.
And that's really unfortunate too, because that's not at all the idea that I wanted to get across.
I mean, it's like a scare tactic, and that's all it's gonna do. And you can't scare someone with the same thing forever.
Especially when it comes to addicts, you're gonna use whether or not you want to use. And so we might as well have resources that will better help keep them safe.
I think everybody was respectful to other people's ideas, and we had people from all different aspects of drug education.
I wish I would have been more informed on who was actually going to be a part of that discussion. I mean, there wasn't anyone up there that had anything to do with treatment, or at least a drug addiction counselor or something.
I just wish that there was some way to use the manpower better. All these people that want to help, I just wish there was a way that we could allow them to help somehow.
Like we're trying to help, we're trying to create solutions, but we can't do that if you're just gonna completely disregard what we say.